Let's move on to Erik Erikson. Erik Erikson's psychosocial theory. Freud focused on biology as a prime motivator. Erikson suggested that our relationships and society's expectations motivate much of our behavior in his theory of psychosocial development. So Erikson was a student of Freud and he emphasized the ego. Yung theory kasi ni Freud, it's more on biology, as the prime motivator, yung mga drive, no, yung mga sexual drive. And for Erikson naman, it's the society's expectation that motivate much of our behavior. Erikson was a student of Freud. So yun nga, no, he emphasized the ego or conscious thought in determining our action. In other words, he believed that we are not driven by our unconscious urges. So alam natin kung ano yung nakaka-motivate sa atin and we consciously think about how to achieve our goals. So hindi lang yung puro unconscious urges. So ang nangyari doon, Erikson believed that the roles that culture and society created conflict that the ego needed to manage. So hindi yung urges, but it's the culture and society. Human develop their egos or managers as we overcome social issues to resolve the conflict. Erikson is considered the father of developmental psychology because his model gives us a guideline for the entire lifespan and suggests certain primary psychological and social concerns throughout the life. Erikson's theory is an 8-stage model, with most stages happening before 18. Okay, there is an exact order to development, and each stage need to be completed to move on to the next stage. So we have Erikson's first 4 stages. The first 4 stages address childhood. Each stage is an elaboration of the previous stage. So you start with trust versus mistrust in infancy, followed by autonomy versus shame and doubt sa toddlers, initiative versus guilt for early childhood, and industry versus inferiority sa middle childhood. The last 4 stages address adolescence and continue throughout life. So we have identity versus role confusion for teens, intimacy versus isolation for early adulthood, generativity versus stagnation for midlife adult, and integrity versus despair for late adults. Okay, let's discuss in detail Erikson's stages of psychosocial development. So on the first stage, we have infancy. So that's birth to 18 months old. The basic conflict is trust versus mistrust. So ito yung crisis during infancy and the important event is around feeding. What happens here? Now the infant is dependent and hopes that needs are met, especially yung sa feeding niya, no? Yung sa pagdede. If so, the infant may gain a sense that the world is a trustworthy place. So ang common na explanation or example for this is kapag umiiyak yung bata at nagugutom siya, it's immediate na papadedehin mo siya kasi by that, ma-remember niya yun, magkakaroon siya ng trust. Kasi hindi naman, yung mga baby, hindi naman niya nakakakita, so hindi nila alam, no? They can just communicate through crying. Okay, next we have autonomy versus shame and doubt. So this is happening during early childhood, 2 to 3 years. And the important event is around toilet training. Parang similar to dun kay Freud, di ba? Yung sa inal stage ng toilet training, like, tinuturuan na kasi natin yung bata kung paano ang tamang gagawin nila sa toilet training. In addition, pagdating dito sa autonomy versus shame and doubt, ito yung sa toddler, right? Example din dito, yung ability ng toddler to walk and to talk. Now, he wonders where he can go and what can be said. The ability to be independent within safe limits is the goal. Yung mga parents kasi, if the children or if the babies are starting to walk, di ba parang natatakot yung mga parents. So, it's also important that the baby or toddler would learn, no, yung talking at saka yung walking. Next, we have initiative versus guilt, and this is during preschool, 3 to 5 years. The important event is exploration. Ito naman um, sa mga bata, no, this also encompasses preschool or early childhood. The child wants to plan and begin a task or project without assistance. No, nag-explore na sila sa kanilang mga environment. Pwede rin, it's building or playing, yung mga play nila, or putting together toys or making paper tickets. Okay, the goal is initiation, not completion. Yung ability nila na mag-i-initiate ng behavior. No, preschoolers learn to initiate tasks and carry out plans, and they feel guilty about effects to be independent. Ang importante nito, yung bata ay nag-i-initiate, nagkukusa. Next, we have industry versus inferiority. This is the concern pagdating ng school age, 6 to 11 years. Ang important event dito kasi papasok nila sa school. If you have this age, grade 1, di ba? Parang hanggang grade 5. Ito yung concern ng mga bata kapag pumapasok na sila sa school because yung mga bata, may tendency na pagka nagsama-sama sila, nagko-compare sila. Diba? Children learn the pleasure of applying themselves to tasks or they feel inferior. Kapag ka meron nagagawa, yung mga ibang bata na hindi nila nagagawa, they may feel this inferiority. Industry involves being very busy and trying out one's skill. Hopefully, the child has successes and believes that they measure up well when comparisons are made. So, gusto nila kapag meron silang natatapos, meron silang gagawa para pagka nagkaroon ng comparison, meron silang output. Next, we're going to the last 4 stages to address adolescence and yung continuation until sa last, no, maturity or death. We have identity versus role confusion for adolescents 12 to 18 years old. And the important event here is social relationship. Una, pumasok ka ng school. Ito naman yung kapag high school ka na, di ba? Up to senior high, you have the social relationship. Teenagers work at refining a sense of self by testing roles and then integrating them to form a single identity, or they become confused about who they are. So, ang mga teenagers dito, ang struggle nila, who am I? Who am I socially, physically, sexually, morally, academically, and so on. So, if you are in this stage, you may be asking yourself this, no? Once an identity has been established, the person is in a better position to make intimate, long-term commitment. So, ready na siya dito sa next stage, yung intimacy versus isolation. And this is during young childhood, young adulthood, or early adulthood, 19 to 40 years old. So, the important event here is relationships. Okay, young adults struggle to form close relationships and to gain the capacity for intimate love, or they feel socially isolated. So here, in this stage, if you were able to know yourself, yung identity mo, you are better equipped. Kasi ganun yung stage theory, no? You're better equipped for the next stage, that's intimacy versus isolation. And then for the middle adulthood, 40 to 65, we have generativity versus stagnation. And the important event here are work and parenthood. Kasi if you're here, no, kapag nakapag-asawa ka na dun sa early adulthood, you are a parent already or you are working. The middle age discovers a sense of contributing to the world, usually through family and work, or they may feel a lack of purpose. Ito yung concern ng mga middle age. A person looks at their life and hopes to be doing something that is worthwhile. No, yung generativity. No, if not, they may feel stagnated or stuck and impelled to make changes. Kasi kung pagka ganyan, di ba, matanda ka na, marami ka na na-experience, more or less, at least, meron ka nang papamana dun sa next generation. Marami ka nang naambag in the society. Lastly, we have ego integrity versus despair. This is during maturity, 65 hanggang death. And the important event is reflection on life. It concerns us at the end of life. We want to look back and think that we have lived according to our belief. Kung hindi, meron kang despair or regret. No, we want to see agreement between who we are and what we've done. No, hopefully pagdating dito sa stage na to, natupad na yung ating mga pangarap or we'll live with regret. No, when we reflect on his or her life, the older adult may feel a sense of satisfaction or failure.